Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasade Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gaur Gopinan Shama Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagnapuri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Chamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Transcendental Prasada Distribution Ki Jai Harinama Sankirtan Ki Jai ISKCON Youth Gadam Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Pramanandi Hari 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 Bo All glories to the Sambodhi Bodhis Hare Krishna All glories to the Sambodhi Bodhis All glories to the Sambodhi Bodhis All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devin Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udidayet Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 9, text number 24. Nabi Radat Iha Satom Basi Yasya Pungso Vijnana Shaktir Aham Asam Ananta Shaktihe Rupam Vichincham Idam Asya Virinvato Me Ma Ririkshishta Nigamasya Giram Vishagaha Brahm Samhita Nabi Rada Ihasatum Basi Yasya Pungso Vijnana Shakti Aham Asam Ananta Shakti Rupam Vichincha Idam Asya Virinvato Me Marishishista Nigama Shagiram Vishaga Nabi Rada Ihasatum Basi Yasya Pungso Vijnana Shakti Aham Asam Ananta Shakti Rupa Vinchincha Ida Asya Virinvato Me Mari Vishishta Nigama Shagiram Vishaga Nabi Rada Ihasatum Abasi Yasyam Pungso Vijnana Shakti Aham Asam Ananta Shakti Rupam vichincha ita asha virinvato me. Mari Rishishta Nigama Shagiram Vishaga. Navirada ihasabto asigayanto Vijnana Shakti aham asa ananta Shakti Rupa vichinja ida asya virinvato me Mari Rishyashta Nigama Shachinan Vinama Vaishnavis, Navirada ihasato vasiyasyamto Vijnana Shakti aham asa ananta Shakti Rupa vichincha ida asya virinvato me Mari Rishishta Nigama Shagiram Visaga Cinnamons. Nabi Radha from the navel lake, Iha in this millennium, Saktaha lying, Ambasi in the water, Yasya one whose, Pumsaha of the personality of Godhead, Vijnana of the total universe, Shakti energy, Aham, I. Asam was born. Ananta, unlimited. Shakti of the powerful. Rupam, form. Vichicham, variegated. Idam, this. Asya, his. Virinvata, manifesting. Me, unto me. Ma, may not. Ririshishta, vanish. Nigamasya, of the Vedas. Giram, of the Psalms. Visagraha, vibration. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Translation. The Lord's potency are innumerable. As He lies down in the water of devastation, I am born as the total universal energy from the navel lake in which the lotus sprouts. I am now engaged in manifesting His diverse energies in the form of the cosmic manifestation. I therefore pray that in the course of my material activities, I may not be deviated from the vibration of the Vedic hymns. This is Lord Brahma speaking. So purport. Every person engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord in this material world is prone to so many material activities. And if one is not strong enough to protect himself against the onslaught of material affection, he may be diverted from the spiritual energy. In the material creation, Brahma has to create all kinds of living entities with bodies suitable to their material conditions. Brahma wants to be protected by the Lord because he has to contact many vicious living entities. An ordinary Brahmana may fall from the Brahma Tejas, or the power of Brahminical excellence, due to his association with many fallen, conditioned souls. Brahma, as the supermost Brahmana, is afraid of such a fall down, and therefore he prays to the Lord for protection. This is a warning for one and all in the spiritual advancement of life. Unless one is sufficiently protected by the Lord, he may fall down from his spiritual position. Therefore, one has to pray constantly to the Lord for protection and the blessing to carry out one's duty. Lord Chaitanya also entrusted his missionary work to his devotees and assured them of his protection against the onslaught of material affection. The path of spiritual life is stated in the Vedas to be like the edge of a sharpened razor. A little inattentiveness may at once create havoc and bloodshed. But one who is completely surrendered soul, always seeking protection from the Lord in the discharge of his entrusted duties, has no fear of falling into material contamination. Om Jnana Timinandasya Jnananjana Sharakaya Chakshu Umilitan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtan Stapitan Yena Buddhare Swayanupa Kadama Hyan Tadati Swam Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamanam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrachatam Sahagana Nakunata Vitam Tam Sajivam Satvaitam Savatuta Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Dinabandhu Chakapate, Gopesha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta Namastute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi, Radhe Vrindava Nishvari, Rishabhanu Sude Devi, Pranamami Hari Priye. Vanchakau Pataru Vyascha, Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha, Paditana Pavanebhyo, Vaishvanebhyo, Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Vasade Gaura Bhakta Vinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nabi Radha Ihasatom Basi Yasya Pumso. Vijnana Shakti Aham Asham Ananta Shaktehe. Rupa Vichincha Itam Asya Virinvato me ma ridvishishta nigamasya giram visagaha. Translation again. The Lord's potency are innumerable. As he lies down in the water of devastation, I am born as the total universal energy from the navel lake in which the lotus sprouts. I am now engaged in manifesting his diverse energies in the form of the cosmic manifestation. I therefore pray that in the course of material activities, I may not be deviated from the vibration of the Vedic hymns. So here, Lord Brahma is continuing making his prayers to Lord Vishnu. So in this verse, Lord Brahma specifically prayed for the protection from the material activities from the Lord, pray for the protection from the Lord. Yeah, like that. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he said that every person engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord in this material world is prone to so many material activities. And if one is not strong enough to protect himself against the onslaught of material affection, he may be diverted from the spiritual energy. It reminds me of a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that Devi Hesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya Mam Evaye Prabhadyante Mayang Etam Tarantite. Krishna tells Arjuna that this divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. So Krishna is telling Arjuna that this material energy is actually a divine energy. It's very difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has innumerable energies, and all these energies are divine. Although the living entity are part of his energies and are therefore divine, due to contact with material energy, the original superior power is coveted. Being thus coveted by material energy, no one can possibly overcome its influence. So both the material and the spiritual nature, being emanation from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are eternal. So the living entity belongs to the eternal superior nature of the Lord, but due to contamination by the inferior nature, matter, the illusion is also eternal. The conditioned soul is therefore called Nityabada, or eternally conditioned. No one can trace out the history of his becoming conditioned as a certain date in material history. Consequently, his release from the clutches of material nature is very difficult, even though that material nature is an inferior energy. Because material energy is ultimately conducted by the supreme will, which the living entity cannot overcome. Inferior material nature is defined herein as divine nature due to its divine connection and movement by the divine will. Being conducted by divine will, material nature, although inferior, acts so wonderfully in the construction and destructions of the cosmic manifestation. The Vedas confirm this as follows: Mayantu prakritin vidyam, mayinantu maheshvaram. Although Maya illusion is false or temporary, the background of Maya is the supreme magician, the personality of Godhead, who is Maheshvara, the supreme controller. This is from Svetadvatara Upanishad. So it reminds me a story from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's the story of a great sage, Sobari Muni. So Sobari Muni, actually, he was a very powerful mystic yogi. And in order to achieve spiritual success, so he practiced mystic yoga underneath the water of Yamuna, because he wanted to avoid the attraction from the object of the senses. So he's specifically hiding himself underneath the water of Yamuna river. And while practicing meditation, one should sit, straight like this, and also his eyes should half close and half open, and stare on the tip of the nose. Because if you completely open your eye, then you will be attracted by the object of the senses surrounding you. And if you completely close your eyes, then you will fall asleep. So you cannot meditate. So Sobari Muni, he was practicing underneath of the water of Yamuna with half closed and half open eyes. But one day, he opened up a little bit more of his eyes, and he saw the two fish right before him have sexual intercourse. And immediately, the desire for enjoy opposite sex aroused from his heart. So he cannot sit underneath the water anymore. So he came out from the water and go to the king and ask the king to give one of the daughter to marry him. But because Sobari Muni, he has practiced, austerity and penance underneath the water for so long, his body didn't look so beautiful. And none of the daughter of the king wants to marry him. And Sobari Muni understand that. So he immediately, with his yogic power, he transformed himself into a very young, handsome man, And then upon seeing that, all the 50 daughters of the king, wants to marry him. And he actually married all the, 50 daughters of the king. And each each daughter gave birth to 10 sons. So in this way, Sobari Muni's family is really huge. It's really huge. But one day, he was in a secluded place practicing a kind of meditation, and suddenly he realized, actually, he has been wasting so much time, engaged in the family affairs. In the family affairs, yeah, he has wasted so much time. And he really repent for his mistake. And he said to himself like this. It's here. 1 second. It's in the Canto 9, text number. 1 second. Sobari Muni, he said, in the beginning, I was alone and engaged in performing the austerities of mystic yoga. But later, because of the association of fish engaged in sex, I desired to marry. Then I became the husband of 50 wives. And in each of them, I begot, 100 sons. Not 10, it's actually 100 sons. And thus my family increased to 5,000 members. By the influence of the modes of material nature, I became fallen and thought that I would be happy in material life. Thus, there is no end to my material desires for enjoyment in this life and the next. So he is really repent. In this way, he passed his life in household affairs for some time, but then he became detached from material enjoyment. To renounce material association, he accepted the Vanaprastha order and went to the forest. His devoted wives followed him, for they had no shelter other than her husband. And then, when Sobari Muni, who was quite conversant with the self, went to the forest, he performed severe penances. In this way, in the fire at the time of death, he ultimately engaged himself in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, he becomes successful after that, It also reminds me another story of, Haridas Thakur. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is described that there was one time Haridas Thakur, he came to the forest of Bernapola. And there, Haridas Thakur, he constructed a cottage. And outside the cottage, he planted a tulsi plant. And he would chant the holy name of Krishna 300,000 times daily in front of tulsi. So that means, Haridas Thakur, he would chant the holy name of the Lord throughout the entire day and night. We may ask, so how he can maintain his body? So it is said here, for his bodily maintenance, he would go to a Brahmana's house and beg some food. So he was very spiritually advanced and pure. So all the neighboring people start to worship him like anything. But the ruler of that district, whose name is Ramachandra Kam, he became really very envious of that, because this Ramachandra Kam is actually a great atheistic. So he didn't like the devotees to be honored like that, So, but the thing is, this Ramachandra Kam, he cannot find any fault on Haridas Thakur. So finally, Ramachandra Kam, he called out all the local prostitutes together and said to them that there's a devotee named Haridas Thakur in the forest. And all of you should devise a way to deviate him from his religious vows. So, out of all the prostitutes, there was one very attractive young girl, and she promised, I shall attract the mind of Haridas Thakur within 3 days. She said, yeah. And Ramachandra Kam said, very good, very good. I shall send my policeman with you. When he sees you with Haridas Thakur, he will immediately arrest him and bring both of you to me. But the prostitute said, first of all, let me have union with him once. Then the second time, I shall take your policeman with me to arrest him. The prostitute was saying like that, So that night, the prostitute, after dressing herself most attractively, went to the cottage of Haridas Thakur with great pleasure. When she arrived, she bowed down and offered prayers to the tulsi plant. Then she went to the door of the cottage and offered obeisances to Haridas Thakur. So this means that the prostitute is actually quite cultured lady, following some Vedic culture. She exposed part of her body to Haridas Thakur's view and sat down at his doorstep. She spoke to him in very sweet words. So the prostitute said, my dear Thakur, oh great preacher, great devotee, you are so beautifully built, and your youth is just beginning. What woman could control her mind after seeing you? I'm so eager to be united with you. My mind is greedy for this. If I don't obtain you, I shall die. So the prostitute was telling Haridas Thakur like that. So upon hearing the words from the prostitute, Haridas Thakur replied, I shall accept you without fault, but you will have to wait until I finish chanting the Hare Krishna mantra on my beads. Until I do, please sit down here and listen to the chanting of the holy name. So as soon as I've finished, I shall fulfill your desire. So this is the answer of the Haridas Thakur. So the prostitute have no choice by sitting near Haridas Thakur, hearing the chanting, the Hare Krishna mantra from Haridas Thakur. But Haridas Thakur has to chant 300,000 names a day. So by the time he finished all his rounds, the night has already passed, and the sun was rising. And then Haridas Thakur said, I'm so sorry, tonight I didn't get a chance because I have so many rounds to chant. So you please come tonight, this night. So by this, I'm sure I will fulfill your desire. And same thing happening the second night. And then Haridas Thakur told her, you come, the other night, this day, the third night, you please come. And then the same thing happened. And by the third time, the prostitute, because after hearing the chanting from Haridas Thakur, his heart completely got purified. Yeah. And then the prostitute said something really nice. Let me see her. The prostitute then returned to Ramchandra Kam and informed him of what had happened. Okay. And then Ramchandra Kam sent her to Prabhu. And then he told the truth to Haridas Thakur. He told Haridas Thakur saying that because I have taken the profession of a prostitute, she said, I have performed unlimited sinful acts, my Lord. Be merciful to me. Deliver my fallen soul. So he, after 3 days of hearing the chanting of the Krishna's holy name by Haridas Thakur, the prostitute got completely purified. So he begged Haridas Thakur to deliver her like that, So the prostitute said, kindly act as my spiritual master, instruct me in my duty so I can become free from material existence. And then Haridas Thakur said, immediately go home and distribute whatever property you have to the Brahmins. Then come back to this cottage and stay here forever in Krishna consciousness. Chant the Hare Krishna mantra continuously and serve the tulsi plant by watering her and offering prayers to her. In this way, you will very soon achieve the shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. So I just stop here. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, microphone, please.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your class. I really enjoyed the stories. Thank you for the class. I really enjoyed the way you tell the stories. I was just wondering, you said that those 2 stories, you read the translation and the purport, and you said that reminded you of that Bhagavad Gita verse, the famous verse, and you read that to us. And then after you read that, you said that reminded you of those 2 stories. I was just wondering what the connection was. Why did those 2 stories remind you of that particular verse from the Bhagavad Gita? And even how did that verse from the Bhagavad Gita remind you about what was being presented today in today's translation and purport? What was the connection?
Because Prabhu, he was saying in the purport of today's words that material energy is actually divine energy of Krishna. It's very difficult to overcome. That's why I was, telling the story of Sobari Muni, because he tried to overcome this material energy on his own effort. Yeah. So on one's own effort, we can never overcome material energy. But if we can take shelter of Krishna, or take shelter of Krishna's representative, the spiritual master, then we can easily overcome the influence of this material energy. That's why I'm telling the story of Sobari Muni, as well as the story of Haridas Thakur, because Haridas Thakur, he was taking short of the instructions of his guru, spiritual master, right? That's why he's not affected by the influence of the prostitute. Is that answering your question? Yes, Maharaj, you have something?
What we really learned from this wonderful story of Haridas Thakur is that he had a tremendous amount of faith that the holy name is so powerful that if somebody continues to listen to it as the quote-unquote, he didn't see her as a prostitute. We have to make this clear. That was her profession, but that's not how he saw her. He saw her as a soul, conditioned soul, and as a soul who has been deviated and who he wanted to bring back to the understanding of who she really was. And who was she? She's a soul. And who is she? She's connected with Krishna. And her business is really to serve and to love Krishna. And he did that through his chanting of the holy name. And with that love in his heart, she became, if you will, it was like contagious. She also began to have those same feelings. Therefore, the power of the holy name is very great when one has such faith, such dedication, such devotion, such love, and knows that Krishna can do anything and everything if we have that kind of faith. So this is what, he was not just chanting, he was desiring, he was eager to see this woman transformed from where she was to what she ultimately became. I don't know if you mentioned that, but she took over his little hut and she continued chanting and became a very famous sadhu or sadhusini. And people worshipped her, honored her, glorified her because she was so pure. And that purity came from her belief, her understanding, and her love in Haridas Thakur. She felt that in her heart and continued doing what she did. So we also, as devotees, have to keep in mind this. We will encounter so many different persons, some of a low class, some of a higher class. Our only concern should be is that they are servants of the Lord, and our business is to engage them in Krishna's loving service so that they can please the Supreme Lord, who will then bestow upon them his blessedness, his kindness, his sweetness, and enable them to also feel love of God. And in feeling love of God, what will happen is, of course, they will give that to others just as they have received it themselves.
Thank you very much for your wonderful comment. Yeah. Any other thing else? Okay, yes, Prabhu.
I believe you had said when the 1,000 or 100 sons to each of his wives, and I believe I heard you say something about he was caught up in too much family affairs. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that? Because I'm growing up like family first, so there's no such thing as like too much family affairs almost.
So I recommend you read the ninth canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, then you will get a full picture of Sobhani Muni's family life. Yeah, I recommend you read. It's a very long story.
So does he then abandon his family?
Yes, we probably have some. Yeah. Yeah.
In the Vedic picture of reality, family's not first. It's up there, but first is self-realization, reviving your awareness of your identity and your eternal relationship with Krishna. So yeah, family is important. It's a value. It's a high priority. But and he was doing it. He had the 50 wives and the 100 children. Somehow or another, it doesn't give any details in the Bhagavatam how he was managing all that whole affair. But he, at some point, as Gauranga Prema pointed out, he started reflecting and he was remembering that, wow, I was like a yogi, and I was endeavoring to go back to God for liberation, and somehow or another I got deviated into this, and he regretted that he had done that, and he decided to revert back to his former occupation of being serious about self-realization, getting liberation. And he was successful. He went back to Godhead. And it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam that all his wives also went back to Godhead.
Right.
It doesn't say anything about all the 5,000 children, but he and his 50 wives all went back to Godhead. So that's pretty responsible. You know, that, I mean, he didn't continue well, I don't know what his family life was up till the end of his life, but that's the most responsible thing you could do in terms of family life. Take your dependence back to Godhead with you, which is, you know, so that was a complete successful family life that he conducted as far as that goes. So it's a little different. You know, the Vedic picture of reality is kind of different from the ordinary picture of reality that we grew up with.
Thank you.
In the purport also mentions, also Prabhupada makes a very remarkable point. He said, a little inattentiveness
Right.
can create havoc.
That's true.
So the examples that were given in either both mentions that, you know, this great yogi he just slipped a little bit, inattentiveness.
Right.
And on the other side, Haridas Thakur, so staunchy with a lot of faith, he never became inattentive.
Right.
And another point is that as far as family life goes, there are great Vaishnavas like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He in one of his poems or writing songs, he said that when he goes to his home and he sees his whole family engaged in devotional activities, his heart rejoiced. He saw his place not as an ordinary home, but as Vaikuntha, everything divine. And he was a family man of 13 children. And in the other side too, you have the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. He was a celibate from life. But at one point, just to make emphasis that how important it is to engage or to have Krishna conscious children, he mentions, if I will have to engage, like I'm paraphrasing, in sex life, if I can bring those souls back to Godhead, liberate them, I can have hundreds of children.
Right.
So family life is also praised, but with the right consciousness, right attitude.
Right.
Otherwise, great sages and great mystics and holy people are afraid of family life. It's like, I can get entangled in this. But on the other side, you have those great Vaishnavas who have many children. So
Thank you very much for the wonderful comment. So we will stop here. You know, Gantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktavinda ki jai. Oh my God, sorry.